Hey guys, Chris here, Kite Republic. I have got Aidan Nicholas here from Armstrong Foils. If you don't know Aidan, he competed on the GWA World Tour. He was second in the wing M2O race this year, so absolute weapon on anything water involved.
Thank you.
And also knows more about the Armstrong range than I'd say probably anyone on the planet. I'm sure Army would disagree.
Army knows.
But I've been very impressed by your knowledge and way of being able to just explain it simply. So hopefully we can do that again on video now.
We'll see what we can do.
Now, I know everyone watching this video right now wants to know about the HA range. They want to know all the ins and outs, where it's better than the old one, where it fits in, all of that. So can you tell us a little bit about who is this built for, this HA range, which sports, and then what level of rider, you know, is going to make the most out of it?
Yeah. So the HA specifically, first off, designed for proning and surf foiling.
Yep.
That's where we started with these, and the aim was to get them to be able to pump back out again for a smaller size, which then you had more nimble. So optimizing a section that gave a little bit more low end,
yes,
which means you can ride, if you're riding a bigger foil like a 925,
yep,
you can now ride an 880 and be super comfortable with more lift than a 925.
Beautiful. And for those of you that aren't totally across that low end as well, we're talking about going down in sizes to get the same result, but basically you can ride slower and still be gliding without having to gas yourself and really get your speed back to what we call high end or mid to high end. So
100%. And then the turning capability, because we've got a smaller span on this,
yep,
as we shrink spans on foils, that affects how they roll through the water, because
yeah,
you're pushing more energy every time you get further
absolutely. And I had a ride on this yesterday, and I've got to say, coming off, you know, the original HAs were speed demons. They revolutionized what HA was to the market.
Yeah.
But now we've got to a point where there's that speed end, and we want that performance and roll and playback. And I felt like I was on a mid-aspect wing for turns yesterday, but I could stand there and just glide out until I get to the next bump or something. It was 100%. Sensational.
And that's the big thing, is like guys who are downwinding as well, or winging in waves that are rolling. They're wind swell. They're not that powerful ocean break or a surf break. You're going to love these as well, because you're going to be able to stand there and glide and then still wrap the turns you kind of want. So it's going to allow you to ride a smaller foil but still have that playfulness that you want.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So originally developed for the prone, so the fun factor had to be there. We wanted to not have people gas out and be able to link. And, you know, everyone wants to link away, right? You start
100%.
foiling, the first thing you want to do is link. So could somebody that's just started prone foiling jump on a HA, or do they need to look at the MA to get their, you know, basically get the pitch control and all that up and feel more comfortable? Where do you feel?
I think what we've seen in the last year is a lot of people have been riding those MAs and they've got that experience, and it hasn't seemed as big of a jump. These are quite stable for them because they've got that lower range. You don't have to have that acceleration and that sort of process. So I think these do get up really comfortably, and I think someone who is getting straight into prone could be fine on this as well.
Okay. Now, question for you. Lots of people start prones, you know, on fairly big, fairly low aspecty wings, just because that's the way it was in the past.
Exactly.
Yeah? So someone coming straight off their old, you know, big, low aspect, tank sort of feel, is going to get on this, and the first 5 times they go to take off, they're going to just push it through the water, or they're going to stall it or whatever else. What little tip could you give to someone to make the most of their sort of intro end on a HA, and what feel would they get as opposed to what they used to have on a heavy, clunky sort of feeling low aspect wing?
Yeah, so the good thing about these is they do take off quite steadily.
Absolutely.
So they have that, like when you paddle in, you're paddling in, and
I'm not saying this wing in particular. I'm saying a high aspecty feel compared to the older one.
100%. So these ones are going to have more low end. So the biggest thing is what was the trickiest part, and the reason a lot of people are stalling is when you're coming off the back of a wave, you come through that white water.
Yes.
And that's that, like, if you don't have enough speed, or if it's not a perfect break that's peeling, it's hard to come through that.
Absolutely.
So adding that little bit more low end gives you half a second of, whoa, okay, and pump back.
Chalk and cheese, isn't it? It's coming off wobbly and then all of a sudden trying to pump with the squiggles versus coming through it and just bang off, and just awesome.
Pairing this with a high modulus mast, getting that direct feeling so that you get it's not just the turning, but it's the pumping as well.
Yes.
Every time you pump, you get more efficiency throughout your pump. So then it goes further and takes, because you're trying to keep the board as level as possible, especially with bigger span foils.
Absolutely.
So as soon as you get an angle on them, you're losing efficiency because it's sliding off the side of the foil.
Yeah, cool.
But as soon as it's flat, it's projecting forward as optimal as it can.
Yeah,
so
it makes total
keeping
sense.
those flat, keeping your body kind of in line, and really just driving.
Yep.
Driving kind of through the bottom of the pump to get to the top.
Yes.
And then letting it glide again.
Yeah.
And through the bottom, like really pushing through the bottom of the pump. I see a lot of people cut their pump too early, or try to pump on the top of the pump, like pushing down from the top.
Getting that porpoisey, old school, a low aspect pump, we call it. That one that just ruins your back. Where,
and that's what we're seeing, like this and the downwind foils. The downwind foils are even more extreme. They're like little tap, 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 tap.
Yes.
This, you can still do that driving through.
Beautiful.
But you don't need to think of like nose diving down and then it coming back up again. It's like, let's get that efficiency going.
Okay, and just in regards to someone quickly on the prone side again to finish, but in regards to someone starting their prone adventure in that HA area, now can they go too big and can it get harder with that? Is there a particular size you think makes it the easiest for, like, say, an 80 kilo rider? Like, is there a particular size you find easier to start on, or just big is better initially if the waves aren't too big?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's a tough one. That's
a tough one because
this is rough.
It's all about your weight's going to have a huge effect on what you're doing. Someone who's 60 kgs, I'm going to say 1180, you're going to be on the point of okay, this feels a little bit out of my ballpark. One, because your weight that you put through is not going to drive like a 90 kg guy.
Yeah.
So you're going to, when you start to roll or turn it, I think that's when you more lose it. The pumping straight line, you won't lose much.
What about takeoff to initial rides? Takeoff to initial riding. Going too big, is it obviously it makes it a bit harder because it won't roll with you quite as much, but they seemed really rolly. That's why I asked, because I'm like, I feel like I could pump this thing forever, and if I had started on it, you know, moving into my okay proning days on it, I would have just accelerated on even the bigger sizes. I would have been up for hours or minutes.
And I think definitely now people can ride those smaller foils, and like I'm 81 kgs. My two prone foils, 980 and 780.
Yeah.
But if you're a little bit more beginner, I would say 80 kgs would kind of be like maybe 1080 for like under knee high, sort of like I want to connect a lot of times.
Cruisy connection.
And it's your idea. A lot of the guys I've been hanging out with, they go, how many waves do they want to connect? They want to connect 3 waves. That's their aim. So if they've got a foil that can connect more than 3, they find it too big because they're not going to be surfing as hard. So they're trying to find the optimal foil that they can be like 3-wave connect, go for that. If you want to connect for ages, like if I'm going out for a super long time and wanting to be up on foil for 45 minutes, I might go for an APF and I'll just cruise and connect on tiny bumps. But
if I want to connect for 45 minutes, I call the ambulance before I hit the water. Nice.
But if you're then wanting to turn and do that sort of stuff, you kind of, I'd say sort of your 90 kgs, your 1180 is going to give you a lot of lift still. So you're probably still 1180, maybe 1080. But we haven't gone much bigger than that because we still want that surfing aspect. And the thing is, they give a lot of lift for what they are. And you don't, like, once you go too big on these foils, it becomes too unrideable.
Absolutely.
So
that was my question as to how big do you think? Because see, I felt the 1080 yesterday as rolly and fun as a lot of smaller foils I'd use, but I could stand there and just glide across without pumping to the next connection on a like mini downwinder play that we had. It was a sensation.
And a lot of people will go like, "Whoa, you had the 1525 and the 1325, but we don't have those foils. We stop at an 1180 now."
Yeah.
And okay, so if I was riding a 1525, like where do I go now?
Yeah.
And that 1180 is going to give you ample of lift, but still going to turn through and be controllable and manageable. That's the thing. All of these range are controllable and manageable, and that's in the HA.
And it is needed that massive, you know, someone particularly in their head needed to be on a particular size. That APF that we've had for a while now is bloody good.
100%. If you still think I need a bigger size than that, the APF range is perfect for you. It's available. It's there.
Nice. All right, and now I'm going to throw it. I know there are so many wing people just waiting to hear what's it like for winging, all of that. So this goes down into some really nice small sizes too. Tell us, comparing the old HAs to these HAs, what a winger can expect, and let's talk winging.
I think a winger can expect, if you want a similar sort of speed range, you're kind of dropping a size or 2 to get that speed of it. I kind of think for these, if you're looking to glide, project, ride ocean swells, HA. For me, winging, I ride on the MA a lot still. And so if I'm looking for like powerful swell, I'm trying to rip turns, rip jumps, all that sort of stuff, I'm on an MA because it gives me that faster, more responsive.
It's like that control under load, right?
Exactly.
It's that ability to like we used to say about edging in every other sport. It's that control when you're loaded, and
But this is going to give you that glide and projection.
Yep.
So that the two differences, like, okay, I want to be able to just cruise on some swells and just ride them, and not have to worry about keeping the foil moving or anything.
Yeah.
Then an HA is going to be your foil of choice.
Totally.
But if you're like, oh, I want to really get aggressive and like have foot straps and roll it under my feet, then an MA is going to allow you to have. With an MA, you can have your feet, a small MA, you can have your feet on the center line, and it'll roll and snap under your feet.
Yeah, nice.
Whereas an HA, I actually prefer to ride them a little bit more strapless.
Yeah.
So I actually like to ride, get my feet across the rails, and then really drive through the turns.
It's that style and efficiency feel, isn't it?
100%.
Like it's cool as. So you said before, what you were riding before, you can comfortably drop a couple of sizes to go to the same speed range.
Yeah.
My feel yesterday when I was riding was that those couple of sizes down was still easier to get off the water than the other ones.
Yep.
So is that true? And where does that sit?
100% the takeoff speed, as we're saying, even for prone, you're dropping 1 to 2 sizes.
Okay.
So for winging, where you've got a power source straight in your hand, you can easily drop that 2 size and be like, that was if I was on a 925, I can go to a 780.
Yeah.
If I was on a 725, you're going to go to a 580.
And low end that we talked about earlier on the prone side, the low end of that is still going to be very comparable, right?
100%, but you're going to surf and turn so much faster. So if you're like, oh, I was gliding on waves on a 725, then you're like, sweet, a 580, I'm going to start gliding and carving on that sort of stuff.
Still gliding the same, but I got twice as much play factor.
And if that's the pump, if the 725 had plenty of pump for what you're looking for winging, if you wanted a bit more pump but still a slightly smaller size, then you go to the 680. So you just drop 40 cms, and then you'd be like, oh, okay, this has more glide and pump than the 725, because I felt the 725 was like a little too small for my average day.
Okay. Then
I'd go to the 680, but still have the same turning and that sort of thing.
Yeah, nice.
So
I had a couple of people yesterday at the demo came off the water, and like, oh, geez, I was really surprised. Like, I could get it off the water. Like, that doesn't happen on this size.
100%.
That's sweet.
And people jumping from MAs, you can jump down a decent size range.
Yeah.
Because your span is realistically a massive proportion of your lift.
Yeah.
And so if your span on the 1475 is still about the same as your 980, 1080, so like when you start to go and across that, you're still going to get the same sort of lift in that sort of span, but you're going to have a faster section, which is going to keep you gliding longer, and it's going to allow you to play on the swells.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, nice. No, well, I mean, feedback yesterday was sensational. Yeah. I cannot wait to get these in the hands of all the customers as well. I think we've got a very short wait now, which is exciting. And yeah, for me as well, like on that efficiency of pump side versus playfulness, it's as good, if not better, than anything I've had under me before. So I was really impressed. And Aidan, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us the feedback there. I cannot wait to, as I said, get it under everyone's feet. Guys, if you are keen to demo any of this gear or just talk, we love this. We'll talk all day about foils. Hit us up at kiterepublic.com.au. Cheers.